So the question for all the pastors and churches I know isn't should the church get political? The question dilemma is how to best navigate the politically charged environment in which we live. So we have been talking about, what's politics, what's theology, is there a difference? What does the Bible say being grounded? What does it mean to be in Christian community and really digging in? I love that regular discipleship and all that. But building on that, and I think maybe, I don't know if that's the elephant in the room per se, but maybe that's the door through which many people came is, wait a minute, we've got a really politically charged environment. That's what's in the forefront of my head right now. What do I do with that? So the dilemma, how best do I navigate the politically charged environment in which we live? And I'll just maybe start with Eric, and Glenn's shaking his head, which is good. And so Eric, if you want to say something on that, and I'll go to Glenn and any other panelists who want to join in.
Yeah, I think maybe what I would just reiterate is what Glenn and John spoke about earlier. And I think the question kind of assumes the answer that it's not a question of should we kind of quote get political, but how do we do that, and how do we do that well? And so, Glenn laid out a framework for that to kind of think through those issues and talk about that. And I would just maybe encourage folks that are listening, both from the pastoral side, but also the congregational side, to find that balance, of how do you address that issue, because, it really is, John messaged after the last time I talked that, when I talked about pastors not addressing the issue, he says, yeah, we know that a soft answer turns away wrath, but a non-answer can allow wrath to fester. And I think that's a super important point, John, that I think, there's a balance there in terms of how you deal with that. But it is an encouragement to dig into the issue, to address it, to not shy away from it completely, and thereby send a message you may not want to send as a pastor.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, John.
Yeah. So I think, one of the reasons why people yell is to get the attention, right? In a quiet room, yelling is the way that you stand out. In a loud, polarized room, nuanced and thoughtful conversation is the way that you stand out. And I would say that right? We live in a world that it's so polarized that even if you do have good thoughts, trying to talk and correct across the aisle, you actually have the least, or you actually have the smallest platform and the most people ready to write you off. And they say, well, of course you would say that. We know that you're with them. We actually have the greatest platform to push and to challenge and to give these nuanced conversations, not to the people who we differ most with politically and theologically, but to the people who we would align most with politically and theologically, but we also have the most to lose there. And that's what I think is so hard, because when you start to do that, you realize that you are thrown out and you find yourself a little bit homeless, right? As you speak or push back, right? We've seen it on both sides, right? We've seen the Russell Moores of the world try to use the platform that he has to speak and to nuance into his tribe and the stuff that's come with that. And we've seen the same thing on both sides. So I would say, though it's been less than encouraging to see that take place, I do feel like that is where we have the greatest platform and opportunity to really shape the conversation to be nuanced and thoughtful.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we're going to have a deep conversation, or we're going to just ignite into fireworks. You can kind of predict potentially. Glenn and Caitlin, do you want to respond to that?
I mean, that's beautiful. I'll throw on a little garnish here just to say, that part of that nuance is in refusing labels. And this is why I say the biblical categories thing is so important, because the biblical categories are different than the labels that we use in political discourse or in public discourse today. And so even, liberal, conservative, whatever, you slap these labels on people and people think they know everything that you believe. And if you imagine a bit of a Venn diagram here, where someone says one thing and that overlaps with another circle, you assume that they belong in that other circle, and you think, oh, you said this. Well, this other people I know also say that, and so therefore you must believe all these other things too. And if we would just resist the temptation to lump and to label, we could really get a lot further in some of these conversations.
Yeah, amen. All right. Caitlin, did you want to add any, or are we ready to move on?
Yeah, well, just one quick thing, which is to say that a
Sure.
lot of us who really love getting into debates, who love thinking about politics, who love the policy, can think that either ourselves or the people we're talking to are just sort of brains on a stick, rational people who have a list of policy priorities and are making rational. We are, as Glenn talked about, embodied with emotions and with histories and with communities. And so when we're going into conversations, always having in mind, probably before the kind of rational, legal, all of those kinds of policy questions, to first think, who is this person and what feelings are motivating how they are responding? Is there fear involved? Where is that coming from? Is there desire involved? Where is that coming from? Who do they feel loyal to that you are threatening? How do you think about people as full human beings that have all of that history and emotion, and not to just kind of avoid the main conversation, but to make it a better conversation, to say that you're a full person and not just a list of policy priorities when I'm talking to you.